Hey folks, this is Mike Tholfsen, OneNote and Education Product Manager, and today we're going to be talking about the future of OneNote and Education. And as you can see, instead of a green screen, of course, for this video, got to film it in front of a purple screen, because at the end of the day, we're all OneNote Avengers, right? Okay, let's get started. Now, before we get going into the future of OneNote Education, I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about present day. When we talk about OneNote in the education space, there are three core pillars. Those are saving time, being more organized, and collaborating more effectively. And that's really the core, or the motherhood and apple pie, so to speak, of how OneNote is powerful in education. And that can be students, it can be teachers, it can be faculty and staff, but those are three key areas that we believe really can help give teachers time back and get more organized and really work with their kids more effectively. Now, when you go beyond those core pillars, you can get into where it's a great quote from Rob Baker. OneNote can become a framework for teaching and learning. And this is things like the class notebook. It can be things like the staff notebook, where you're really having public spaces, private spaces, project-based learning, different types of feedback, multimodal input. It can really encapsulate a lot of the teaching and learning and even some of the pedagogy that's going in the classroom. And some of these digital scenarios are much more enabled with OneNote. Now, the class notebook, for those of you not familiar yet, this is where we have a little wizard in Office 365 that lets a teacher set up what we think is a great ideal structure for the classroom to collaborate in. And I call it an easy button for a teacher. So the teacher is able to set up this class notebook that has three key components. It has a collaboration space where small groups and project-based learning can happen and everyone has read-write access. It gets a content library, which is read-only for all the students, but the teacher can put whatever materials in there, such as lecture notes or handouts or quizzes or curriculum. And then every student in the class gets a private student notebook. So if you think about the teacher being the hub and the students are all spokes, every student gets a private student notebook where the teacher can interact with them privately and give feedback. Kids can ask questions, kids can give feedback in return to their teacher, and all of this is encapsulated in one big class notebook. And what's really nice is everything then is in one place. Now, we've been seeing quite a lot of feedback with OneNote in the education space over the last year or two, and I have some of my favorite quotes here. Maybe my most favorite is this top one, which is the most significant and organic change process ever in the school. We've also been seeing a lot of quotes from other schools and other teachers, things like student engagement and accountability improving, it's shifting the way I'm teaching, I have a window into their brains, and things like receiving synchronous feedback dramatically shortens the learning cycle. So we're really seeing OneNote in the education space have this impact in the classroom with teachers and students. The other thing is that if you look at a lot of the top education trends, and even moving forwards, we're seeing OneNote really dive in and have an impact in some of these areas. So things like personalized learning with those private student notebooks and the ability to distribute content into different places, the ability to give real-time feedback. Because OneNote can go offline and because OneNote is free and on any device and platform, it can go anywhere, anytime. So the anytime, anywhere learning realities are happening now in many, not only in the US, but all around the world, places where there's low bandwidth. We have inclusive classroom concepts, and I'll talk more about learning tools later, and digital content and curriculum and delivering that, and I'll also talk about that a little bit later. Now, the first area that I want to talk about, and this is moving forward, so now we're getting into the future areas, is Microsoft Classroom integration. Now, for those of you who aren't already familiar with Microsoft Classroom, it's a new product that is in beta right now. It's in a full public preview, and it will be coming out later this year. Microsoft Classroom is something that is free, and it's built into Office 365, and it pulls together a lot of the pieces in Office 365 into a nice classroom environment that a teacher and students can interact in. And a core area of that is assignments. So if you can look at the user interface here, you can see things like assignments right here. You can see the calendar, conversations, and look at that. There's a class notebook built right into Microsoft Classroom. And the idea is that if you have a set of classes that you're using with Classroom, all of your class notebooks will set up automatically. You can do assignments from inside of Classroom to get pushed to your class notebook. And you can even manage your class notebook right from inside Classroom. And this is another area that we're going to be building some of the same management capabilities that are in the class notebook. We'll be building those right into Microsoft Classroom. And so the idea is Microsoft Classroom is really a superset of class notebook. So if you're a school wants to be able to use Microsoft Classroom and set up a whole set of classes very easily for all of your teachers, you can do that, and it'll all come with class notebooks built right in. And so in the future, we're going to be spending even more time and effort really having tight integration with the class notebook here into Microsoft Classroom. And so there's a lot of really interesting scenarios around assignments. There's other interesting scenarios that you might imagine around how parents might be able to access this that we think about in the future. And just the in general integration between classroom and school data sync, which I'll talk about in a bit, will make it very easy when students are leaving classes, students are coming into classes, teachers might leave, there might be a substitute teacher. We want to integrate and automate a lot of that process such that it feels very, very easy and less burden on the teacher to be able to use your class notebook. So Microsoft Classroom integration is definitely a top area that we're going to be looking at in the future and really making sure class notebooks and Classroom integrate seamlessly. Now on the IT administrator side, something called school data sync is really important. The way that Microsoft Classroom is set up typically, not all the time, but the easiest way is to use school data sync. And what that does is it talks to your school information system, your SIS. So let's say that you're using PowerSchool as an SIS, and school data sync can pull in all the roster information from PowerSchool and set up all of the classes in your school within about a couple hours, let's say, or maybe overnight. So the idea is before the school year starts, you push a big button in school data sync, and it can pull in all that information and set up all of your classes and all your class notebooks very easily. And so again, if you can imagine, instead of typing in all the students and all the class information in your class notebook, now you can pull all that information from PowerSchool or Skyward or whatever SIS or MIS that your school uses, and you can automate the creation of Microsoft Classroom, which also comes with class notebooks. On the flip side, let's say your school doesn't use Microsoft Classroom yet. Let's say your school uses Canvas, or maybe they use Brightspace, or maybe they use Schoology. But you still want to be able to automate the creation of class notebooks at a high scale. We will be updating school data sync such that you can still do that. So you will be able to take your entire SIS and all the rosters and all the teachers and all the students, pull them into school data sync, and then automate the creation of class notebooks at a large scale. So that's something that will be coming hopefully in the new year. We don't have time frames yet, but it's something that's a top priority to be able to enable the mass production of class notebooks. And then as students are coming and going, automate those processes and sync up the class notebook and add and remove students so then the teachers don't have to, and it'll always be in sync with your SIS. So that's coming as well in the near future. The next area that I'm going to talk about is the Class Notebook Addin. Now, for those of you who are already familiar with the Class Notebook Addin, this is something that we shipped as a beta back in March, and we shipped it as a general availability in June. The Class Notebook Addin is a companion to the Class Notebook, and it's really designed for teachers and allows teachers to be even more efficient with the Class Notebook and do things like page distribution, reviewing student work, creating new sections, new section groups, even entering assignments and grades. And so with the Class Notebook Addin, it's currently available in the PC, and there's also a version available on the Mac that doesn't quite have as many features. What you should expect in the future here is, first off, we would like to really push this across all our platforms. So we're working right now on building it into the web. We're also working on building it into OneNote Universal, which is the Windows 10 version of OneNote. We also want to bring the Mac fully up to speed and add LMS and SIS integration. We even would like to bring this to iOS and even to Android in the future. So what we'd like is that any teacher has access to the Class Notebook Addin concepts on any platform. And so that is probably the top priority we have. In addition, we want to add even more LMSs and more SISs into what we support. In this picture here, you can see that I've got the Addin hooked up to Canvas, and that's under the connections dialog is where you can add your SIS or LMS. We would like to add even more partners, and we're working with a set of partners to enable even more folks. And that's not only in the US, we'd also like to expand our partners across the rest of the world and beyond. And so we're going to work on making our APIs, or the way that OneNote can talk to these LMSs and SISs, we want to make that even more scalable and robust. That's something we'll be working on in the coming year. So you can expect those partners to increase, and the ability for us to work with more and more systems is a top priority. And then also, we want to do some things around assignments. So what we'd like to do is, the ability right now is the Class Notebook Addin can push up grades anywhere from 0 through 100. We'd like to enable more grading scales in the future. So imagine the ability to push out an A through F, or 1 through 5, or decimal points in a better way. So we're hoping to be able to add more and more grading scale support into the Class Notebook add-in to be able to push to these different systems that we talk to. And then finally, we'll also be adding a few more features into the Class Notebook add-in. And I'm not going to share those right now because I want to leave some surprises for when they actually come out. But we'll be having some fun stuff as well as some really useful and time-saving features coming to the Class Notebook add-in. And that's all based on customer feedback. As many people know, we like to talk to teachers, we like to talk to schools, and we really value the input and the feedback from all those folks out there that we talk to. So we want to make sure that we are really meeting the needs of the educators. Now, next up, I'm going to talk about the staff notebook. And for those of you who already know what the staff notebook is, you'll know that it's very similar to the class notebook. It's just that it's focused on school staff instead of teachers and students. So similarly to the class notebook, the staff leader can set up this notebook that has a collaboration space, a content library, and staff member notebooks. And those are the private notebooks where the staff leader can interact with staff members. And it's a very similar type of a setup. It's just that it's in a staff sort of template and user interface versus class. Now, in addition to what we already have in the staff notebook, some top requests we've had are how can we take the staff notebook and integrate it better into groups? So Office 365 has this concept of groups. And so some teachers and staff have asked us, can we integrate staff into groups a little more effectively? So that might be the idea of, if I create a new group in Office 365 and I already have a faculty or teacher license assigned to me, could there be an ability to create a modern group all around a staff notebook? Currently, those staff notebooks only exist in the OneDrive of the staff leader who sets it up. In the future, what we'd like to be able to do is enable the choice of putting that into a modern group. So that might mean my modern group, I have a calendar, I have conversations, files, as well as a staff notebook, all built into that same group. And so this is something we're going to be exploring in the new year, and this has been a top request we've had on the staff side, which is, hey, how can I allow my modern groups and staff to also have that concept of a staff notebook? And that's something we want to look at. In a related area, there are professional learning community groups. So PLC groups, this is something that we shipped in Office 365 in the fall, back in September. And these are designed for PLCs, or professional learning communities. And they provide a notebook template that is PLC focused inside of that modern group. So if you've seen the PLC groups, they have conversations, files, calendar, a nice PLC notebook template, and Skype integration. In the near future, Planner, so Microsoft Planner, will be integrated into these groups. So PLC groups will also have Planner integrated, which is nice. And a top request we've heard is the ability to customize that notebook template that comes out with the PLC group. So currently there's a fixed template that comes out for your PLC group. And in the future, what we'd like to do is enable the ability to have custom templates in those PLC groups. So if your PLC at your school decides there's a certain template you'd like to have all teachers use, we want to have the ability to put in that template yourself versus the default one that already comes with it today. So that's an area that we want to really focus on. In addition, what we'd like to do in the future, inside of Microsoft Classroom, currently you have a set of classes along the left-hand side. We'd really like to be able to enable PLC groups that you're part of, as well as staff groups that you're part of, to all show up inside of Microsoft Classroom. So imagine if you're a teacher, on that left-hand pane, you could see things like all the classes I have, all the PLCs I'm part of, and all the staff notebooks I'm part of. And we want to really have that all in one place because we believe that's a great organizational and time saver for teachers and staff members. So that'll be coming soon as well. Next up, I'll be talking about just the OneNote client itself. Now, one of the biggest areas that we've been investing a lot of time and effort into is the ability to embed things into OneNote. So if you've already seen, we've shipped things like YouTube videos, Office mixes, you can embed sways, you can embed Microsoft Forms. We also just shipped the ability to embed GeoGebra, which is great for math. I've got a nice little picture of Kurt Saucer here doing his happy dance in his blog when he realized you can now embed GeoGebra into OneNote. We also look at things like Office Video. We'll be adding Microsoft Stream and many, many more across the entire education spectrum. So many more areas outside of Microsoft apps and much more in the GeoGebra and other third-party applications in education. So you can look forward to a lot more things being able to be embedded inside of OneNote. And that should be in OneNote clients, OneNote in the web, OneNote Mac, the OneNote app on Windows 10, iOS, Android, across the board. We want to support embedding anything into OneNote. And that actually allows, as you can see, Kurt here in his blog, he said he's going to start building digital textbooks. And we believe there's a lot of really interesting things that you can build when you embed things into OneNote. Now, the other area that we're going to be spending a lot of investment on is really bringing the other OneNote clients up to par on the feature sets. So the OneNote desktop client is very full featured right now, as many of you know. We also would like to make sure that our OneNote web app has as many capabilities as possible, as well as our OneNote Universal app, or the OneNote app on Windows 10. And so we'll be spending a lot of time adding a lot of the features that teachers and students really want into those clients. And right now, we believe that the OneNote web app is great for students, and we think that the OneNote web app, it's always on any platform and any device at any time. And we think that it's a great app for students, and we'll be adding more and more capabilities. Moving forward, we think that the Universal, the Windows 10 app, is going to be the really great app for people who are using OneNote. But we realize right now it doesn't quite have all the capabilities it needs, and this is something that we're going to be adding to in the next year and really making sure that it is awesome in the education space. And related to that is Ink. And for those of you who have seen, we've been really adding great capabilities to our Windows app on Windows 10, our OneNote app on Windows 10. You can see we have things like Rainbow Ink. We've added some great math capabilities, some convert to shape capabilities, and the ability to do replay ink or reversible ink. And we're going to, again, be really doubling down in the ink space on the OneNote app. And a little bit related, if you saw at the ISTE conference last June, we announced our whiteboard app. We'll be doing a lot of great things with whiteboard and ink. Not too many details to share right now, but if you really look at the whiteboard in the Windows 10 app for OneNote, we're going to be innovating rapidly in the inking space. And we believe that inking is a key capability of OneNote. We believe it's key in the education space. There's research around how important inking is, or the act of writing, in the education space, whether it comes to retention of what you're writing, whether it comes to creativity, whether it comes to generating new ideas. We think that ink is very powerful, and you'll see us to invest in that space in the coming months and years. And the other area that I spend a lot of time on is learning tools. So these are tools that are designed inclusively for all students and all people, but especially kids with dyslexia, dysgraphia, ADHD, English language learners, or people learning another language. They're really, really powerful. And we shipped the Windows desktop version of this add-in last June, and many of you have used that and been giving us great feedback. What we're about to be shipping in the near future is an online version of learning tools. So OneNote in the web will have learning tools very soon. In addition, we're going to be shipping it in the Word desktop. We'll be shipping it in Word Online. We'll also even be shipping it into the Office Lens iOS app. And in early 2017, we hope to be bringing learning tools to our iOS apps. So bringing them to OneNote iOS and Word iOS and other areas out there. And also beyond that, we are hoping to bring it to the Windows 10 Universal app. We want to bring it to Mac. We would like to bring these learning tools capabilities to as many platforms as we can for OneNote, as well as some of the other Office apps like Word and even Outlook. And so that's going to be a really big focus for us in the next set of months, is not only getting it to different platforms, but bringing it to different languages. So beyond English, and we want to really go into, probably have Spanish and French, German, Italian in the beginning, and start to add other languages very rapidly across the board all throughout 2017. So what you'll see is a continued focus in the area of learning tools, and really making sure we can bring these capabilities to more platforms, more devices, and more languages. Now, in addition, we have another set of new features that we'll be bringing to learning tools, and I'm not going to go into all the details on this presentation today, but you should know we will be adding more innovation and more newer capabilities to learning tools. And often OneNote might be the initial platform where we do some of the experimentation and see how those features work, but we would like to bring a lot of these capabilities across to all of our platforms and all of our apps over time. So you should expect to see quite a bit of innovation in the learning tool space over the next year or so. The last topic I want to talk about is content delivery. So as I mentioned earlier, you have all these different types of things you can embed into OneNote now. You also still have audio, text, pictures, inking, all these other capabilities. And for those of you who already are familiar with this, we've shipped a couple of interesting things. So for example, we have the Angela Myers Liberating Genius ebook, which is delivered as a OneNote notebook, and you can download it for free on docs.com. We also have the Avid eBinder, which is another free OneNote starter kit. It's also delivered inside of OneNote. So you can imagine there's lots of other interesting things that you could use for OneNote as a delivery tool of content. We have 21st Century Learning, 21 CLD. That's also delivered as an ebook inside of OneNote. And we want to make OneNote even more powerful to deliver really rich, interactive types of content. And so the ability to embed things in OneNote and annotate and take notes, access it on any platform, any device, and also OneNote is free. And so all those things together, we believe, make a really compelling way to start delivering more and more content inside of OneNote, and again, make it free on any platform and any device. And so that's another area where you should expect in the coming year to see more and more interesting things coming out and delivered in OneNote. We also would like to ensure that OneNote has a great platform in terms of the ability to deliver these things. There's probably some tweaks and updates we'll need to make that even more of a smooth process. So you should expect to see more and more things coming out in the content delivery space. Okay, well, that is it for the presentation today. I hope you've been having a fantastic OneNote conference. A huge thanks to Jared for setting this up. It's been pretty amazing. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free, always reach out on Twitter, any time of day or night. Avengers will be there. Reach out on Twitter, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
My one and only OneNote. My one and only